In part 1 of What Happens When Your Hero Hurts You, we talk about why survivors stay silent when the person who harmed them holds power. Next week, we go deeper. Research just confirmed what survivors have known their whole lives. It is not fear that keeps us silent. It is something heavier. Come back for part 2. We are going to call it by its name. What happens when your hero hurts you?
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Hey. Welcome back on another episode of Speak to Heal, the Awaken to Purpose podcast. And I'm here with Miss Regina.
Good.
And here we are again having discussions about what is going on in the current climate and a story that's making headlines right now about who?
Cesar Chavez. Without a correct pronunciation, Cesar Chavez.
So we're going to jump into it. And today, if we can title this, we're going to title it, What Happens When Your Hero Hurts You?
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Welcome to the Awaken to Purpose podcast, a podcast by survivors for survivors of childhood sexual trauma and chronic illness warriors. Here, we get honest about healing, transformation, and awakening to our God-given purpose. Hi, I'm Larissa, mother, author, nonprofit founder, survivor empowerment coach, and your host. Around here, we shift mindsets, change the narrative, and create a new norm from a faith-filled lens. So let me ask you, have you ever wished someone would speak more openly about the complexities of healing? Ever longed for a space that sees you without judgment or performance? You are not alone. This podcast is anchored in Revelations 12:11 and Romans 12:2. We're breaking silence, reassigning shame, and healing forward. Join me. Let's journey to free and awaken to purpose together. A few weeks ago, someone called me while I was traveling. She was the one that told me that this story broke. She was so upset at the woman and about, yes, because her response was, why did it take her so long to speak? And apparently the lady that she was speaking about, I think she's like 90 something.
Yeah, she's 90-something now,
90
Dolores
something years
Huerta.
old. And as always, you're going to have mixed emotions. And they mean well.
Yes.
But honestly, again, if you've never walked this walk and this is not your
Right,
experience,
yes.
you don't understand. And she wanted to do a reaction video to the lady coming out and saying she didn't speak up about it until now. And I said to her, I can't stop you from doing the reaction video, but bear in mind, I can tell you from my experience, there's many reasons why survivors don't speak. So can you speak to that as to what your feelings was around that?
Oh, yeah. So I think, one, victims of sexual violence as children, as adults, don't tell. That is the norm because of the weight, the shame, the fear of, and I know, most of the time, family and community will come out on the side of the perpetrator. So I think it's especially courageous survivors that do speak. Now, you add when you are the right hand person to a first local, then national, then international hero who is going to believe you. And how much more pressure is going to come out. And here's what's going to happen. The community, the larger community, is going to say, and I know this, I read a few articles about Dolores' statements directly from her.
Yeah.
And it was fear of discrediting the movement. For those who may not know, Cesar Chavez was an activist who organized Latino, Latina, Latinx, however you want to say it, migrant farm workers who were just considered the lowest of the low, not paid anything, treated like sharecroppers and sometimes like slaves.
Yeah.
There were stories when they first started trying to do this work, they would have bring people up from Mexico, to get a temporary visa to do farm work, to harvest the crops, and not feed them anything other than whatever they could scrape from what they were picking. There was an instance where they found a man dead under a tree. He had starved to death, and the only thing in his stomach, because it was suspicious they did an autopsy, were 2 banana peels. So this is what Cesar Chavez, to his credit, so somebody can be so good and so bad at the same time, right? This is what he unionized. This is what all of those people who were suffering this, either directly or indirectly, were seeing happen. So what do you think is going to go to the woman who said, he was seen as a saint, who says, this man sexually abused me?
Can you imagine if she had come out back then?
Yes, and it probably would have. It would have discredited the movement, which is why J. Edgar Hoover was so intent on finding Martin Luther King cheating on his wife. The point was to and so women get to be pawns in all of this.
And what she would deal with.
Yes.
They would have attacked her.
Exactly.
I'm certain she would have gotten so much backlash saying, oh, she's just trying to bring him down, to disrupt the movement.
Yes.
She's lying. And didn't she, I think the story said she had a child by him?
Yeah. It says a lot about sexism, about misogyny, because not only, you think of the cultures too, and the cultures that we're focusing on here, right? Yeah. So I'm not calling out Latin or / Hispanic culture as worse than my home culture or yours, but the traditional way in which Mexican and Chicana women were seen and treated, you've got to put that layer on top of it too. So there were some who certainly thought she was out of her place for being a leader in this movement. She was already hearing that noise. Why wasn't she home cooking, supporting somebody, whatever, but she shouldn't be right up there. And at the same time, I will say, this stuff isn't over. At the job that I used to work at, where we dealt with helping victims of sexual violence, a woman came forth who was so very brave to come forth, most of her co-workers would not. She was a migrant farm worker that came up every summer. You have a lot of Mexicans and now people from Central America as well, coming up to work in the tobacco fields. In the 1950s, those people were Puerto Rican and Jamaican, but there's still people coming to work Connecticut's tobacco. And she came because the procedure was everyone had to stand in line, and the foreman would pick who got to work that day.
Oh, okay.
And the women got picked to work. They had to do sexual favors for this foreman for the opportunity to pick tobacco. Yeah, and make way less than a living wage. And so once again, the women she was like, I didn't think anybody would believe me, but I don't have, a way to do it. So women have been so often like the pawns or the objects in a movement. This is not new. What happened with Cesar Chavez isn't new at all. Could you imagine if some woman said that Marcus Garvey raped her?
Right.
Who's trying to pay attention to her?
She would be dismissed so fast and labeled.
Exactly.
Labeled at that.
Right. Yeah. And I remember in the 60s and 70s, in the Black Power movement, Black women make way less than a living wage. Black women were told by Black men, you have no place in the women's movement or women's rights or the feminist movement, because we have to deal with the Black cause first. And if your man is, and this was about directly in response to complaints about domestic violence and substance abuse related to the violence. Your man comes home and beats you and curses you and abuses you because the white man is so cruel to him and he can't, fight that. So it comes out against you and your children. I'm like, and ain't I a woman and ain't I black? Where's my black power? Like, you don't need none. You just wear that afro and shake them.
No, it's listening to these. I can't help to ask when you hear these stories, what, if anything, comes up for you? What triggers you most about this?
So I never thought of it in terms of a lot of men don't like women. I thought of it as a lot of men don't really believe that women are people.
Which is worse.
That's how I thought of it. I have a shirt that says feminism is the radical notion that women are people. So I think that women get seen as objects or a means to an end for male pleasure, for servitude. It's was nothing through most of my growing up, and some people may still be saying it. If a mother and wife died, and a man was a widower, for him to say and other people to advise, yeah, you better go find your wife to keep house and take care of the kids. Yeah. Not like you can be in love again. You can, you know what I'm saying? Boom. Which is as bad as, I need me a man with some benefits to pay these bills. It's not good to objectify men either, to see them as objects of meeting one's financial needs or wants. So when do we become?
I don't know if we're going to see that in our lifetime because
I don't think so.
it's been come down through the ages, dare I say from biblical days, and to your point, I don't believe all men, especially black men, believe that way.
Right.
However, when you look at the statistics and just overall, over and throughout
Yes.
the years, the
Yes.
treatment of women and the dismissal of women, it's literally that for the vast majority, we are just seen as valueless. We're seen as just objects, literally for the gratification.
Yeah.
So,
The objectification, the dismissal of women, and now let's go to girls, children, little boys,
mhm.
children. This whole, I don't know, just concept of master and servant, really,
That's what it boils down to.
is what it boils down to. It disappoints me greatly. Going back to when I heard of Cesar Chavez,
Yeah.
it broke my heart. And it breaks my heart today when I see black men who might be 3, 4, maybe 5 generations from when their ancestors were somebody's property. When I see them buy and sell women and children for sex, where even in popular culture, we glorify, even if it's in a humorous way, we glorify pimping.
I just can't help but wonder, when do we, as on a broader scale, start to shift that and see women and children as valuable and worthy of protecting? Because when you think about the vast majority of people that are being abused and the abusers,
Yes.
it's the women and the children. I'm not saying that men aren't being abused in different ways
Right.
too, but when you talk about, for example, trafficking
Yes.
and just all of the things that you're seeing happening, children, children.
Right.
And it breaks your heart to think about what goes through someone's mind for you to get to that place where that's okay.
Right. And I'm going to put in there, because we got to be honest, women participating in it in big ways, being proud to be the bottom bitch, or being proud to go out and, recruit children to come into yeah, being trafficked. And is that, just the outright evil? Is it that she is his victim and therefore blah? All of the above, because I would think any man that acts like that just, has his own emotional and psychological damage that he's acting out. But people can decide to do better. That's what really is important to me. But I always say that power is never giving. You always have to take your power. And so there's a question of those who feel good or whatever, those men who feel good about assuming a superior position that allows them to use women and children as disposable items. Why would they say, oh yeah, I'm going to make a decision to change, unless there had been some negative consequence to their behavior or some spiritual awakening?
The spiritual awakening part, that to me speaks volumes. And my questioning those people, because it's not just men, that they claim they're doing these things because it does something to them. They believe they have the power and they can oppress, they can do all of these things to what is considered in society as the weaker sex. It amazes me because it's asked backwards.
Oh, it is.
Because I don't see logically how it is that you feel so empowered and emboldened and you're asserting power over children. Over children.
No, that is the truth. And you look at it back when there still are in certain cultures, but in Western culture, there were times when, you could kill your own child, your wife, your daughter. You could legally beat them. It's been, patriarchy has been, well, patriarchy still is law, but that type of patriarchy has been law for the longest time. It's really interesting to me. It's kind of getting to the question is what lies beneath this strong desire, craving, I would even say, to have power over another.
The only thing I can chump this up to, it's just we live in a fallen world, man. None of this crap makes sense.
No.
It just doesn't make sense.
No,
it's just evil at its root. Core, it's just evil.
And we codify it. We make it law. We make it religion. And I say religion, and I don't want to separate that from spirituality. And it's certainly not all religion, but there's plenty. For most of what I knew of Christianity, during my lifetime, and I was born in 1953, and prior to my being born, women who complained to the spiritual leader in their church or temple or whatever were told that they weren't doing something right. They weren't patient enough, loving enough. They didn't keep the house clean enough. Do you cook? Do you put on makeup? Whatever. Go get yourself a new dress and, fix yourself up. Or right, it's a man being a man. That's how men are. Don't worry about it. It's interesting watching back on the Cesar Chavez and Latin American culture. But there are some people, most non-Latin, non-Hispanic people have heard of machismo in a negative way. It actually was supposed to mean protector and provider in a positive way. But almost none of the rest of us have heard Marianismo, which is the cult of Virgin Mary. That women are to aspire to be like the Virgin Mary. And part of that is to understand that men are weak and can't help themselves. And to just pray for the poor things, because they're just wild. And there's a idiom, el hombre es por la calle. A man is for the streets. You just have to pray for him. So it's deep in all kind of cultures that we've got the various sayings. And they're excuses. One of the reasons why modesty is pushed so hard in many religions, and women in various sects of Christianity and Islam and other religions, I'm sure, are supposed to cover themselves so much, is to not tempt men because they can't help it. I mean, if they saw an ankle or a kneecap, they might just go crazy. You couldn't blame them.
The reality is, though, because we have found all of these rhymes and reasons, these justifications to make excuses for them, this is why it continues for so long. Not that we really had the power to stand up prior to. And for me, it's just like predators, right? They
It
thrive
is. It
on,
is.
it's the same thing. They thrive on silence. They thrive on people are speaking up and pushing that. So the narrative, the beliefs get shifted, it's get continued, and
Yes.
it's become cyclical where it's just a continuing thing that's going. But
Here's what really shows me how deep and insidious patriarchy is in this negative sense of it. There have always been, and there still are, so many theories of who's evil. And like you will hear whatever, black people are naturally inferior, criminal, evil, blah, blah, all the problems are theirs. From black nationalists and certain other just groupings of black people throughout the world, you'll hear the white man is evil, inherently evil, doesn't have a spirit. Yeah, they're mutations of us, and something happened to them. And just look at the world, and the food is poison, and all the chemicals. The white man did all of that. He's evil. In other places, they'll put it on other groups of people as to why they're bad. Well, yeah, in the United States, immigrants, they're selling drugs, they're doing all this stuff. Immigrants are bad. For all the evidence that is out there, there's no popular theory out there. Men are inherently evil and inferior. None of them make any sense. I don't think it has bearings. Yes.
so many ways to spin this, and so many beliefs, so many stories, narratives, all of it. Literally, of course, as we said before, none of it really makes sense. Unfortunately, it's been structured that way, and we collectively, not everybody, of course, just accept that and run with it and seldom push back. Or even if we're pushing back, there isn't enough of us pushing back and fighting back. And then, in addition to that, all of the things that are structured to keep us from doing that.
Yes, yes.
Right? So it's almost feels like you're fighting a never-ending battle. Like we ever come up and see a change, and don't again, you see things happening, but it's almost like it's happening so slowly.
Oh, I'm telling you. Or now it seems to be going backwards. I want to take a minute to and thank the men who do actively speak and act on behalf of women as humans, as people. Right, yes. Protect, affirm, back up. Yeah, wow, talk about a trigger. I think the word protect almost triggers me because I've never expected anyone to protect me. And I don't quite know if I'd believe it if someone said they would or wanted to. Um, I believe my adult sons are like that, but I haven't had any experience beyond that. But yes, understand the value, true deep value of women, the importance of our energy.
Yes.
That we're valid and necessary and sacred and all that other stuff. Some will say that loud. I think more men definitely have a role in that, in the same way that white people have a role in fighting racism.
Yeah.
Absolutely, men have a role in fighting sexism and misogyny. And I think it's important for more men to, in a sense, be outspoken about that, especially and to speak back to the ignorance that comes out of some male mouths.
And it's sad to say, because we're not saying that we're not racist to our own, and black people and other races are not racist as well. But on the broader scale, we're talking about just like we expect whites to be allies with black, to be able at least put a dent in it and bring some sort of unification to speak, because we cannot speak to them.
Right.
So
You
just like
have
we
to have it
expect
there.
whites to You speak to their own to say, hey, hello,
Yes,
this makes
right.
no sense.
Men need to
Right?
talk to men.
And you find that it's so many women that's trying to have the conversation. And if we don't come together and be unified in that sense, is this ever going to stop?
Right.
I think this would be one of my cries. You have a voice and you do believe that there is value in women, and use that voice to help to speak to your own sex. Growing up, I can't recall ever
No,
feeling
I hear
that.
you. I have that now. Some important men in my life. And I really want to out to the Men of Primal, which is a platform which I usually participate in Monday night sharing poetry. And the Men of Primal are really like special, not only just in being, poets and writers, but really understanding and putting forth
Yeah.
the value of women as full human beings. I wanted I didn't complete my thought in the beginning, and I think part of it is because it did the whole thing with Cesar Chavez um, trigger me so much because he was one of my first heroes. I was 14. The first activism for which I volunteered was the workers' unions boycott of grapes and lettuce. They were asking people to buy grapes and lettuce, picked by people who were being exploited, and like I said, the horrible things that we talked about, being starved to death and all of that. So I really followed Cesar Chavez, and as a black child born in the rural South, though it certainly was not the same, but I could relate to the difficult, long, hard, grueling work that black people did in the South as sharecroppers, as day laborers, or whatever. And anyway, yeah, I just wanted to do something, and this is something I could do in New Jersey.
Oh, wow.
Because, following him, knowing what he was doing, teaching about him when I taught at the UConn School of Social Work, all of that was really in there. And then I was related even more because I go to an annual writers workshop in Albuquerque, New Mexico, that's hosted by a Chicano poet and an author, Jimmy Santiago Baca. And a lot of the people who attend have that experience somewhere in their family. One of the men in there who wrote a book about it was kidnapped, sold for sex from the ages of 4 and didn't get away till he was 18. And this is so ironic. One of his outs, one of the things that brought him forward was meeting Cesar Chavez and people in that movement when he was like 16 or 17, and having people in that movement help him get free, help him get to college and all that stuff. He's an attorney today. So it really me deeply and remains there. And it goes, what is this for a survivor? Who can you trust?
I was going to ask, what did that do for you? And I can't imagine for everyone else so closely connected to.
Yes. Who can you trust?
There's this complicated grief that comes when an abuser was someone who gave you something good, as you just mentioned. And in your case, it's hope. It's that you experience, and they were a genuine kind from the outside looking in,
Right,
a
yes.
kind individual. How do you begin to hold both truths though? Because for you, this is, as a survivor, I can imagine it's more deeply.
Noticing, but I never made the connection with the Cesar Chavez until this moment. Gradually, and lately with more frequency and intensity, I've been remembering and acknowledging good things about my father.
Wow.
I had him pegged most of my life as he was the devil, my mother was the angel. A lot. And so I wonder if there is something with my processing,
Yeah.
the whole thing with Cesar, in things that were good in my father, as well as seeing and acknowledging the damage done to him from the time he was a child. And I do believe that some people love you as best they are able, and that includes hurting you and being cruel to you at the same time. It is beyond logic. It's absolutely beyond logic. But yeah, I'm gonna keep working with that. But I think there's a connection there where the father who, and it's really sad because were it not for his being abusive, and I mean well as and just in a number of ways, we could have been friends. We could have been close. I would get so mad when my mother would say from the time I was little, "Oh, you're just like your father." But here's where it is. It's true. Both of us um, were to leadership, civic activity, politics. A room, the big conversation, the speech giver. This is true. Um, my loved. He had a whole red bound, collection of the works of William Shakespeare. Um, yes, like literature, the arts, that kind of stuff. I was also a closet bisexual. And so it's like I didn't know that till after he was dead. But even that, being attracted to both genders is in both of us. He saw that tendency in me, and that was another reason for him to act so hatefully toward me.
Oh, that's deep.
So, yeah, it just, the music, the jazz. I definitely, um, so I'm acknowledging that I'm grateful that there were things, some in my life, that I didn't turn out like him. I think that's one thing where you can get closer to forgiveness when I'm fine. He was never all right.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? He did the most damage to himself. Enough to be dead, a double amputee from diabetes, refusing to take care of himself. Just keep drinking beer and eating potato salad.
He's dead on the inside, though.
Oh, definitely,
Just slowly
definitely.
killing.
You getting a toe cut off. You don't change anything about how you're living. You're still evil and miserable every day. You got two legs cut off above the knee, and you're dead at 61.
I don't know if this is a thing, but I feel like it's a thing only because I honestly have attempted to do this in a more discreet way. And what I'm referring to is silent. Is there a silent way of committing suicide where it's not that blatant and loud, but because of the misery and the torment on the inside and the difficulty of healing, because make no mistake about it, this journey is hard. But for those that have not found the courage, and some have normalized their misery to a
Oh,
different level, but they actively take part in their own suicide. Because on the flip side, which doesn't make sense, you can't do the big,
right, right,
what we
right, right.
consider the shame come with it.
Yeah,
So
right.
imagine the internalized conflict that you're facing, because on one hand you are counting and just mad at God too because he won't let you die,
Yes,
but you're
yes.
not consciously, actively part in your death because you cannot bring yourself to do it,
But at the same time,
if
telling
that makes
yourself it's
sense.
not killing you.
And you're
Telling yourself
telling,
you're not
yes,
committing suicide. But we see it every day. We see it with eating disorders.
yes.
You know, I guess it's when the heart and the head don't agree because in your head, if you will starve and you will die.
But I remember specifically during my court case, and this was the first and only time I felt like I had enough, to the point where I literally wanted out. Again,
Mm-hmm.
after all the years of fighting the suicidal ideation and have been spared 3 times, this was the first time that I ever got to that space again.
Mm.
And it was one of the hardest days, because when you've been drilled so many times and you have to keep telling the story, but not only that, the prosecutor was just so nasty, and every time I looked I saw
Mm.
this man smiling and giggling, because I figure he thought he was going to get off scotch free. Coupled with that, I was being asked that by my mom, and even at one point by my attorney, if I really want to do this, if I'm not thinking about dropping. And I felt so defeated in the moment. And I remember going to my aunt's house at the time because I was in Jamaica. And I knew because I had already started this process, it was going to seem cowardly and seem to them that I offed myself because I was lying.
Oh, yeah, I didn't think about that.
But
But of course, that's what
but
they would
that's
say.
where my head went, right? If
Yeah.
I did and take myself out, I was going to see she was lying, and that's why the guilt. So what I did, I knew with the sickle cell anemia, if I cold shower, it would
Oh,
trigger a crisis.
right.
So I was giving myself an out that, hey, if I stay in this water longer than I need, I'm gonna get sick and they're gonna have to take me to this hospital. I
And
my
that's how
best
I'll get
bet.
out.
That's how
Okay.
I'll get out. That's how I'll escape. But to think about when you're in such a destitute position where that is how low you go,
Mm-hmm.
but I am aware of my actions. I'm consciously making this choice. So it makes me wonder.
No,
It's on that level.
you do see the slow destruction. You know, you see drug addiction
Yeah.
and you see it in people who are 6, 7, 800 pounds and more, and yeah, and 70 pound adults who weigh 70 pounds.
Yeah.
You see it all kind. You see it in people who work themselves to death who don't have to.
Yeah.
It's not like they're so much on a subsistence level that they've got to be out doing grueling work all day. And so it's a job, if you've been treated poorly, to treat yourself well. To even know
Say
what
that
that is,
again.
it is a job if
Oh
you've been
my
treated
gosh.
poorly. To treat yourself, to learn to treat yourself well.
That's a
And I think
bar.
that's so much what therapy is about.
Yeah,
I think it's also what spirituality should be about, to
yeah.
see yourself as God sees you,
Whew.
not as your mother, your father, the man across the street sees you,
Or taught you.
taught you and said, this is who you are. Yeah. Um, I had thought the other day that, like, God is a science that we don't yet understand. People try to go understand. People try to go make it one or the other, one versus the other.
Yeah, yeah.
But I think they're the same thing with different names. But when we understand, when we come to understand, right, the universe and creation, then we call it science. And everything else is a miracle of the spiritual nature of blah, blah, blah. I don't get it.
Yeah.
But anyway, that fits in there somehow, I think.
So before we go to shame, right? I want to ask, what do you want to say to the survivor who is watching their abuser be celebrated right now?
Ooh. I want to say, one, acknowledge what that person did to you and others you may know of that they did. If you are ready to speak to anyone, could be anyone from your best friend and that you asked not to tell anybody, from now to your therapist to the New York Times, but don't feel pressed like you have to.
Yeah.
You don't. I hope you can, because I believe it's freeing to live your truth. This is your truth. And it's not your fault if for other people the good work they've done gets somehow diminished. If people can't separate it and say, it's wonderful that this person put whatever millions of dollars into this marginalized community, and it's terrible that in that he or she felt fine in abusing the people. And I would say, like, hold on.
As hurtful as it is, I would say everything that's done in the dark must come to light one way or the other. So being celebrated right now, and
Oh,
you're
that's
not at the place
true.
where you can speak up and out this person, and rest assured that one, you know your truth. You know who and what this person is. And as culture, as everything that's happening right now is revealing to us, it's only but a while. Jamaicans have this saying. I
Mm.
remember growing up and hearing this all the time, and I don't know if you have some version of it from down south, but I remember hearing over and over, long run, short catch.
Oh, I love it.
And what it really means is it doesn't matter how long is between the not knowing, the person not being outed, they're being celebrated, they're being seen as this particular person. When the tables turn and the shift happens, you're going to see how quickly they go from being celebrated to now being in your
Oh,
space.
I like
So
that.
it's a matter of time. So though it may be tough, I will add to what Miss Regina said. When you see them being celebrated, that is time is perfect to find somebody to talk to. Don't just sit in it by yourself, because I know how damning that can be.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's hard. You know that this person has,
Yes.
for lack of a better term, damn near ruined your life. You're
You
stealing.
said it.
Like,
My father was a community hero. He wasn't my hero at all. I was scared to death of him. But that's everybody else knew somebody else. And when you were talking about a saying from Jamaica, what was coming right to my mind was half the story has never been told. But absolutely, yeah.
and really into be very careful how you treat people. I'll continue to say and advocate for survivors to be emboldened and find the courage to start speaking up more and telling their
Oh,
stories, because this is a
yes.
part of that, right? Let people know who these people are, and this is not in a malicious and evil way off. When we don't speak about that which have been done to us, by bear in mind,
Yes.
you're not the only person that they're hurting.
That's just what I was
There's not,
thinking.
and this is what
Oh, Cesar.
Cesar Chavez. It didn't matter how long it took this lady to speak. What moved her to action, if I'm not mistaken, and correct me if I'm
Mm-mm.
wrong, it's because she heard someone else
Oh, yes.
tell their story.
And after she told hers, other women in the movement started to come out. I saw one article where it was Dolores and another younger woman who's now like in her 50s. And so, yes, and I'm sure out of that will come a support group,
Yep,
you
yep,
know?
yep. And that's you always pattern. It takes one to be bold enough to speak up and believe it. What you thought was just your experience, you'd be surprised to know how many others there are.
When we come to know how valuable we are, and our essence is the breath of God. When we come to know that, it's not all
Yeah.
that someone treated us if we were not holy. Okay?
Sacred
And
and
and we
precious.
see that then when we look at other people.
And I have to ask this because it's one of the harder questions, right? What responsibility does a community have when one of their heroes is exposed? Not just the legal
Oh,
responsibility,
I
but
think on a
does,
moral level,
yeah,
it has all responsibility, 100%. But to me, it go left when we've seen, I don't know, I think it was James that was arrested in that for domestic violence. But one others that we thought of as heroes, people wanted to be mad at the woman. Woman of the community was upset that he was being held accountable. And so the whole community is responsible because if we don't call people on their stuff to have them be accountable, we're just saying you can do whatever you want.
exactly.
You know, it made no sense. Yeah, how is it less okay for a black man to beat a woman than a man of any other color? And you're going, oh, you're just putting him in jail because he's black or something. Like, no, that's something black men need to be checking.
Talking about, yeah.
Men need to be setting the standard and pushing back and saying, oh, no, you can't do that to women. You can't do that to our women. We don't put up with that.
One of the biggest things we have is this idolization of people, where because they're doing something great. Because when you
Oh,
talk about James Brown, when you
mm,
talk about an R. Kelly, when you talk about the Epsteins and the this and the work because of the things that they did.
Yes.
But what I struggle with, which is somehow in our heads, we removed the humanness of individuals, right?
Yes.
Putting them on this pedestal, they cannot do no wrong. Now, it's not even a them thing, it's us. This is where we need to check ourselves.
Yes.
What happened? What is the disconnect within us that we feel okay with idolizing someone to the levels of, even when we hear that this individual is taking advantage by whatever means of another human being, you find a way to justify it instead of calling it
Calling
out.
it.
That's something that you have to do your own internal work as what is that?
Right.
Right? It's so many variables, because when you have survivors, hear other survivors telling, and instead of having empathy and showing compassion, you're hit with, oh, it happened to me too, you'll get over it.
Oh,
It's
yeah,
just,
yeah.
it's what, check your soul, my dude. 'Cause
Yes,
something
yes.
happened. That's not a normal response. And that is why
Not at
we
all.
have
It's saying we don't matter.
we yourself don't matter. Yeah, something happened. Something
Yeah,
definitely
yes,
happened.
yes.
Could. But I don't think any of us as survivors that have gone through that wretchedness of those levels of atrocities that were done from childhood. For some of you, even the children, you find ways to justify the perpetrator's behavior opposed to showing compassion and empathy
Yeah.
to the child. That is not normal.
Not at all. Yeah.
She said, when we come to know how valuable we are, our very essence is the breath of God, it is not all right that someone treats us as if we were not holy. Whoo! See, you got to come back for part 2. We're going to call it by its name. And when we do, it is going to set somebody free. Because next week, we're going deeper. Because the research that just dropped, 30 years of studies, one finding, and it is not what most people think keeps survivors silent. It is not fair. It is not threats. It is something that lives in the body, something heavier, something most of us have never had language for. So come back for part 2.